Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. Back with some more vibes for all you, you know what I mean? Man, I hope you all are doing great out there. I hope life is not kicking you in the butt like it's kicking a lot of people in the butt. I hope you all are staying safe. You know what I mean? And making sure that you're cognizant of the other person's feelings, especially in these times with all this craziness that's going around the world and trying to find a solution to this sickness that's going around the world right now. Please take care of each other, all right? So, what we're going to do here, this one is called The History of Indonesia in 12 Minutes. You know what I mean? So, I'm going to the little Asian side of things now, you know what I mean? So, let's YouTube and simmer and see what I go on here.
Today, Indonesia is probably most commonly known around the world for one place, Bali. An exotic and romantic vacation spot, so many people view Bali as the representation of Indonesia as a whole. But what about the rest of the nation? How did that one island and the rest that make up the entirety of Indonesia come to be what they are now? Where did the history of Indonesia begin?
Huh. It's a series of islands. I know of it. But it's a series of islands. Thought it was just one big. It is one big country, but one big landmass. I guess is what I'm looking for.
Like its neighbor of Malaysia, Indonesia can trace its first signs of modern human life all the way back to about 40,000 years ago. Although there is also archaeological evidence suggesting that 40,000 years may be an underestimate, and other ancestors of today's humans may have been present in the region as long as 1.9 million years ago.
Woo!
Either way, the earliest reliable evidence of a sophisticated civilization in current-day Indonesia dates back to only about 400 BC. With the discoveries of Indian trade goods in the region and inscriptions found in West Java and eastern Kalimantan, it is also believed that trade with China would have been concurrent with the trade between the Indonesian archipelago and India. Commerce with these particular foreign nations would have also brought the religions of Buddhism and Hinduism to the islands, beginning or contributing to the outside influence on the region. Jumping ahead to the 7th century, the powerful trade-oriented Srivijaya Empire, originating from the island of Sumatra, flourished from the Malay Peninsula down to Java. Despite their remarkable success over multiple centuries, the Buddhist empire of Sri...
There's a lot of people that think that one nation could just be a nation and not need everybody else, but you go way back in history, they've been trading. They have to get goods from one end to the next. You know what I'm saying? There was always been countries that are monopolized that trade and thing, that they're traveling and to find goods and to bring goods back home and to exchange goods with that with other civilizations and thing like that. So it goes way back. You know what I mean? And when you're living in modern times, because of everything being so advanced, we think, oh yeah, we had it all right here, but they've been doing it for centuries. You know what I mean? Under those conditions and being successful at it, and which cause the mixing and races all over the world, which is, once again, we back to that.
Srivijaya faced its decline after the Chola Empire from India seized their Sumatran territory of Palembang and apprehended their king in 1025. From that point on, the Srivijaya Empire essentially collapsed, making room for the Hindu kingdom of the Majapahit Empire. Founded in 1292, the Majapahit Empire rose to dominate the modern-day Indonesian region throughout the 13th and 14th centuries, prospering through trade as the Srivijaya Empire had done before them. Still, just as their predecessors, the Majapahit Empire hit a wall and began a rapid downfall. Theirs came after the death of one of their leaders, Gajah Mada, in 1364, and the following death of the king Hayam Wuruk in 1389. Leading up to this time, the Islamic faith found its way to the archipelago and began to really take hold over the ensuing centuries. Many different lesser-known
see a change again from the Hinduism to Islam. You see the change is happening. You know, like I said, things are going to change. It's just the way things are.
Sultanates found success throughout the islands as a result, some even outlasting the dominion of the Majapahit Empire. As these kingdoms continued to grow trade in and out of the region, European powers became attracted to the spice market that it offered. The first of such nations to arrive in modern-day Indonesia were the Portuguese and the Spanish in the 16th century. While Spain did attempt to exert some dominance in the Maluku Islands, also known as the Spice Islands, their authority in any part of the Indonesian archipelago was short-lived, due to contesting efforts of Portugal and later the Dutch and British. The Portuguese were initially triumphant in the Malay Peninsula, capturing Malacca in 1511. From there, they aimed their sights towards the Spice Islands, beginning their bid to take control of the spice trade in 1512. While they had some levels of success, they were fairly quickly pushed out through the arrival of the Dutch by the 17th century. In terms of the colonial powers, the Dutch were surely the most prominent intruder into the Indonesian islands. The first Dutch expedition set off for the archipelago in 1595 under the command of Cornelius de Houtman and dropped anchor at the shore of West Java. Around this time, the Dutch East India Company was formed in order to control trade between the
we
Dutch
studied that
Republic
in school.
and the nations throughout the Indian Ocean. The Dutch East India Company was given a significant amount of autonomy by the Dutch government, allowing them to dominate trade throughout the East Indies and keep their competitors, notably the British and Portuguese, at bay. While the original focus of the company was to maintain commercial authority and prosperity, they began to shift their attention as they took control of Java and its neighbors. During the 17th century, the Dutch East India Company made a gradual transition from a leading sea and trading power to more of a colonial-type establishment, after centering themselves in the fortified port of Jakarta, Batavia, or modern-day Jakarta. Working to gain more jurisdiction throughout the Indonesian islands, the Dutch East India Company was also able to capture Malacca from the adjacent Malay
Just a
Peninsula
company
in
doing that more than a
1641. When the 18th
government.
century came around, though,
Well, that's how I'm
the company
understanding
began
it.
to struggle with corruption, conflict, and a slow collapse into bankruptcy, which resulted in the Dutch government revoking their charter and seizing all of their possessions in 1799. In
It's like a company that was doing that. Wow. Granted, they were representative of where they came from, but still, that was a company. That wasn't like a government thing, from what I'm understanding here. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comment section. But that's what it's sounding like here. It's a company, the Dutch West India Company, that monopolized that area. It's interesting. A company. So they've been doing that kind of stuff for years, huh?
1800, the Dutch East Indies was founded, made up of what would later become Indonesia, but for the time being served as the new Dutch colonial administration in the archipelago. This establishment grew over the 19th and part of the 20th century, although some ups and downs such as the Javanese War from 1825 to 1830, ending in a Dutch victory, did exist. Also, in 1825, the Dutch captured Palembang, the former territory of the Sriwijaya Empire. During this period, the Dutch also settled disputes.
It's crazy because all of this is going on because it's like 1825 and all of that. All of that is going on while the slave trade and stuff was going on in this region. Because the slave trade was abolished on the islands in 1833. So with all of this going on there, with the Dutch colonized there, you have the British and the French and stuff and the Spanish, of course, too, in the Caribbean area, having their vibes going on there. You know what I mean? It's funny, you know, because it's kind of parallel to modern day times. So much is going on here that we don't really pay attention to what's going on there, of course, until history tells us what's going on. So it's a parallel thing going on. Everything is changing, like around the world. And it seems like when there is a change in the world, it happens in a domino effect all over the world. Yeah, let's keep going.
and clashes with Aka, Lombok, and Sulawesi, and continued to expand their dominion. In the course of the Dutch colonization, the people of the Indonesian islands were treated vastly unfairly. As Dutch priorities shifted more towards agriculture, the local farmers were mandated to set aside 20% of their own property in order to grow crops for the Dutch to export, such as pepper, sugar, cinnamon, tea, and coffee, and indigo. By the 1870s, the colony moved to a free market system and began to form private plantations, although the local people were still not truly treated justly. Finally, at the very start of the 20th century, the Dutch installed a new system in order to promote the welfare of the archipelago's locals, known simply as the ethical policy. This new program brought about changes such as the construction of new schools in the region, government reforms that allowed more autonomy for the local officials, and the opportunity for some of the indigenous people to become more educated and learn more about the Western world. Even with these improvements, though,
it's not so much becoming educated, if you think about it, because they're educated within their own culture, is getting educated about the culture that's dominating them. See what I'm saying? Because people, like for instance, if you go to like a tribe in Brazil that's not around us modern folks, who are we to say they're not educated when they're educated within their environment, to survive within their environment? They're educated to survive there. They're just not educated as us. It's just different. It's not better. Because if they weren't educated in relation to their environment, they would pretty much die out, wouldn't they? But they're still surviving, so then they are educated, just according to their surroundings.
Not every local was impacted, and therefore many people on the island still felt oppressed by the colonial authority. Over time, these feelings of resentment culminated in nationalist movements and a push for ultimate independence. Unfortunately for the people of the archipelago, the fight for freedom was swiftly interrupted by the intrusion of the Japanese during World War II. At first, the locals were not completely displeased by what they saw as a liberation from their Dutch oppressors. When the Japanese occupation of the region began, they were quick to win favor from the Indonesian people, doing so through their use of natives for administrative positions, unlike the Dutch and their willingness to support Indonesian nationalists. The successful strategy was only temporary, though, as the Japanese opted to use the Indonesian islands in whatever form best suited them during the war, which drew some disapproval from a number of locals. Still, the relationship between the Japanese and natives was not horrible, and as the Axis power began to face defeat in the World War, they threw their support even further behind the Indonesian independence movement. During the latter half of 1944, the Japanese declared their goal of creating a self-governed East Indies, which was later confirmed in August of 1945, when Terauchi Hisaichi, commander of Japan's Southern Expeditionary Army Group, summoned Muhammad Hatta and Sukarno, two Indonesian independence movement leaders, and informed them that Japan intended to make an immediate transfer of independence. The two nationalist men announced Indonesia's independence, declaring it an independent republic, once word was out of the Japanese surrender to the Allied forces on August 17, 1945. The proclamation of an independent republic was not quite so simple, though, and sparked a series of clashes between the Indonesians and the colonizing forces of both the British and Dutch. The British were less compelled to fight back, eventually withdrawing as the Dutch stepped in to try and retake their former possession. After repeated failures, unsuccessful police actions, and growing condemnation from the far west, such as the US At long last, in the final weeks of 1949, the Dutch recognized Indonesia. The following years marked a time of political and constitutional development, accompanied by agricultural and economic ups and downs as well. Beginning first as a parliamentary democracy, subsequently following what then President Sukarno called a guided democracy, started in February of 1957. The republic then fell into the hands of a dictator, former General Suharto, in 1966, before finally returning to a democracy as of 1999. Today, Indonesia is still growing and developing as an independent nation, and an overall population of roughly 273.5 million
Wow.
people in 2020. The Republic of Indonesia is now led by their 7th president, President Joko Widodo of the PDIP, or Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle.
Wow. This was wholly interesting. Wow. And like I said, we learn about the Dutch West Indies Company and stuff like that in school, you know, but it wasn't touched on in great detail. But you know, it's cool to watch this. I mean, I enjoyed it. I ain't gonna lie, I enjoyed it. You know, I don't enjoy the struggles that the people had and all of that, but I enjoyed it in the sense that it's a historical thing that I just learned something or relearn something because I'm old. So it's been a while since I actually read about this part of history. Man, thank you all for watching this with me and thing. You know what I mean? It's just pretty interested in things. So you know, it's amazing how people go around the world and try to colonize it and you know deem the people there not intelligent, but that comes from not understanding the culture. And then they think that by educating them and sort of making them trying to assimilate to your culture makes them more intelligent. But that happened all over the world. But you know what, man? We're here now. And what we have to do is start getting to know each other and start taking care of each other, okay? I'll leave a link in the description to this video so you could check out, you know, the video without my interruptions and check out this channel, see what they have going on and thing. All right? Cool runnings.